it's going to be though with this since I changed the template.
I mean, I can deal with any. If I can deal with the audio from our panel, I can deal with literally anything.
Okay.
All right. Yep, live stream looks like it's working. Just pause that preview, and it's Monday, December 18th, 2023. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we're talking about the vicious smartphone upgrade cycle. All right, go nuts.
All right. So you know how we always, we do an opening bit, and then the next opening bit is only the time period between episodes.
Yep,
right?
the cache gets cleared at the conclusion of a Geek Nights episode for most things that we hold in our brains.
Well, we missed a lot of episodes because I've been doing so much stuff. Rim's also been doing stuff.
Yeah.
But lately, me more so. But
we've both been doing mutually, like the Venn diagram of the stuff we've been doing has been widely separated.
But I intentionally did not forget things that happened so that I could basically reach into the bin of opening bits, right?
That's amazing. So you have persistent storage now, which I have not upgraded.
We're gonna go, like maybe 3 to 4 weeks into the past to Thanksgiving time when I went to California and we went to the Disneyland, right?
Like you do.
And at the Disneyland, of course, the biggest deal is that new Star Wars ride. Well, there's a Star Wars land, right? But the Star Wars land is mostly gift shops and...
I mean, that's the secret of every Disneyland within a Disneyland or world that I didn't realize as a kid. As a kid, I had these memories of Disney having all this stuff. And when we went back for that wedding many years ago, I just remember being weirded out by the realization that like 90% of the real estate is retail, even inside of Disney.
Basically, it's like, the Star Wars land, it's like, ooh, it's this whole land that looks like a Star Wars place. That's cool. And it's the gift shops themselves are attractions. And, and so the food places also, because they're all themed and clever.
But they are just retail in the end.
Exactly. And then you've got there's only 2 rides there in that whole land. Those are the only things that are rides. Everything else is then there's a show sometimes, maybe. And that's it. But anyway, there's the Resistance ride is the biggest deal. And so we paid already admission to get into the park for a day, which is over $100. And it was a busy day and they changed their prices based on how busy it is. And then we paid 20 something bucks for Genie Plus, which is what basically lets you wait in line without waiting in line for rides. So it's the fast pass replacement, and I guess not everyone who goes there a lot says it's not as good as the original fast pass. I believe them, but what do I know? I only went. This is the first time I've been to any Disney.
My Disney policy remains once every decade. I might go to Disney.
Right, I haven't been there since I've never been to Disneyland before ever, and I only went to Disney World twice last millennium.
I've still never been to Disneyland, and I've only been to Disney World 3 times ever.
Well, Disneyland, if you're willing to pay a lot of money, you can do pretty much everything you want to do there in a day, which is what we did, right? So especially if you have the Genie Plus, you're not wasting your time waiting in lines, and you're not a kid who's going to spend 2 hours on a cool playground area, right? Which I wish I was young so I could do that.
We definitely, I have this, you caused a distinct memory of being in the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids land when we were at, I think it was Universal, that wasn't Disney, I forget. Anyway, I think it was, I don't remember. I was a kid, but I remember having, it was just the most amazing thing from our kid brain, and my brother and I were in there for fucking ever, and in retrospect, I realized my parents were probably desperate for us to be done with this thing so they could go do literally anything else.
Anyway, so here's the thing. The Ride of Resistance ride, the most popular ride at the park, right? If you want to get on this ride, here are your options, right? Option 1, if you stay in the resort at Disneyland, you can get into the park early. Or if you have some other VIP bullshit, I'm sure you can get into the park a little early. And so get into the line early and get on the ride when it's not so insane, right? Option 2, wait in a long-ass line, right? For 1 to 2 hours.
Yep.
So if you're there for multiple days, or if you're there from the time it regular opens, until midnight when it closes, that's actually not too bad because you're gonna ride the ride. You're not gonna pay extra money, right? Option 3, get the Genie Plus. Well, that's not good enough, right? It doesn't do anything for this ride. So, all the other rides, like you want to ride Space Mountain, boom, Genie Plus, you're all good, right? You could book a Space Mountain and then get on, which I did. But you want to ride this one, you got to pay extra to use the Genie Plus to get in the virtual line for this one, right? So we paid $26 per person on top of the admission and the already upgrade ticket, right? So the thing is, for as good as the ride was, it's like if you told me, hey, Scott, would you pay $26 to ride that ride again right now? And I'd say, if you let me ride it on my own terms, probably, yeah, I probably would. But the fact that it was on top of the already existing admission and on top of the already upgraded admission, that's horseshit.
Yeah. I mean, we pay almost that much to ride a crappy roller coaster in Wildwood, but you know what? That's all you pay for.
Right. So that said, I got to talk about this ride and why it's the best ride. It's obviously not a thrill ride, though it does have one part where there's a little drop, like a Pirates of the Caribbean has a similar drop, right?
Yeah.
Whoa, right? But so here's how it goes, right? It's shocking how much of the ride is pre-ride. Like there's so much stuff going on before you're actually on the ride. So you go in and you're in a little waiting room. And I was told by people who had been there before that when the ride was new, all the actors and crew members and staff people were way more into it and doing a better acting job with more effort. And now lower effort, which is completely understandable.
Yeah. As a kid, how many times can you say, thank you for riding the whatever at Cedar Point, America's rockin' roller coaster?
They're like, they're all like, whether they're rebel people are got to be like, come on, let's go. And all the, the imperial people are like, shut up, right? Get in line, behave, being mean on purpose. It's like, okay. But so the first thing is you get briefed on what's happening. And we got briefed by a video. And I was told that there's actually an animatronic that did the briefing before, and it was broken, and which is why we were briefed by a video. So we're briefed by a video. Then you're in this open space that's like you're outside a rebel base, and there's a transport shuttle with a hatch on the side. And they're like, come on, let's go, get in the shuttle, let's go, right? And I'm like, I want to you made this huge set here, right? I want to hang out here for 5 minutes before I get on that shuttle. No, let's go, right? So I was kind of not happy with that. I was like, you made all this cool shit here. I could see how awesome this room is. I want to just look around, take some photos in here.
Yep. I mean, it's probably by design in the same way that, in Half-Life, you're going.
The people in line behind me, right, were being delayed if I don't get on the shuttle quickly, right? That's the main problem. They want to keep the line moving because you're still pre-ride. I'm not on the ride yet. So this is still technically the line, right? So you get in the shuttle, the hatch on it's got hatches on both, the side, right? So it closes. And you're just standing this thing. There's no safety equipment, no seats, no belts, whatever. It's big and wide open. You could hold on. It's like standing on the subway, basically. And in the front, there's a screen so you could see into the cockpit. And then the window of the cockpit is a LCD screen. And then there's a rear view, there's a window on the back of the shuttle that's also an LCD screen, right? And so stuff is happening and the thing feels like it's moving, right?
Now,
and it's sort of like Star Tours.
Now, Rim, the fool, hearing what you've said so far, I assume a few things. I assume this is the same as the trick to get you into where the Haunted Mansion actually is. It's just a room. It's going to shake a little. You're going to walk out the same way you went in, but you'll be in a different place. It's actually an elevator or something. That's what I'm assuming.
Right. So I thought, that it's okay, the hatch opened on the right side of the ship. The ship was facing to the right. So, and basically what happens, spoilers, I guess, whatever, all right, is this little transport that you're in gets stuck in the tractor beam of a Star Destroyer and they pull you in. Right?
Oh, the thing that happens in the first 6 seconds of Star Wars?
Right, exactly. Yes, that's right. So I'm like, ooh, this is great because we came in on this side. So that means the room on the other side must be inside the Star Destroyer.
And any educated adult who knows how attractions work, that is my assumption. I would be
so I was like,
absolutely shocked if the first door opened.
That's right. But that's the thing. The door that opened was the door we came in. I thought it was just going to be like basically walk in one side, walk out the other side. Nope. We came in and out the same door. This thing moved somehow. When I got into it, it looked like a permanent fixture. Like there was no way that thing moved, right? I guess you can look at the patents online to see how this works.
It might just be an elevator. Like, that's my guess.
It could be. It would be a sideways elevator, I guess. But
those exist.
This is still pre-ride. The ride has not started yet. Okay.
I'd argue the ride has started.
The ride has not started yet. Okay. So the same door opens and you get out and you are in what is perhaps the coolest room on the planet Earth, which is basically the hangar of a Star Destroyer.
Oh my God. That's the kind of place where like Vader would show up with all the red guys.
And then there's a platoon of animatronic stormtroopers there and a few, Imperial dudes, right? And yelling at you to move along and whatever. And I'm like, I need to hang out in this room for like 20 minutes. It's like, no, you got it. They're moving you along. I'm like, I took a really bad photo in the room quickly. Like, I just want to hang out in that room. They got the whole, obviously it doesn't go into outer space, right? There's the opening of the hangar. It's open. Or it looks open. You're looking out into space, right? And it's just a giant screen, and there's all kinds of TIE fighters flying around out there, like. And I'm like, how could you not let me hang out in this room? Someone worked really hard to make this greatest room on the planet Earth.
Yeah,
I paid $26, and you're gonna rush me along, right?
Can I pay money to just hang out in that room? I won't bother anyone.
I could just, anyway. So then you go along, and there's some Imperial guards who are going to put you in prison, right? In the prison cells on the Star Destroyer. And so they put you into little groups, right? Of 4 or whatever, or how many seats.
However many seats there are in the ride.
Yeah, basically. And then you get put in a prison cell, which is kind of cramped. And then they close the door. And then up above you, right? Kylo Ren comes. Just a video of him, I guess, or animatronic hologram, something. I forget. He comes and he yells at you like he's going to interrogate you and figure out where the rebel base is or whatever, And then something happens and he has to go away. And he's like, I'll come back for you later.
I'm sure you will.
And then you're sitting in this prison cell and someone, lightsabers and cuts a hole in the wall and the door, basically, right? And it's like, it was pretty impressive. I didn't see that door there. Opened, right? And you go out, and then basically you're going to escape from the Star Destroyer. How? I don't know. You don't have a ship. It's like, great, you can get back to the hangar, but what are you going to fly? I'm like, I'm here thinking like, ooh, are we going to steal TIE fighters or something? Like, what? I want to fly one of those, right?
I mean, we have Star Wars squadrons at home.
I know. But obviously this would be better.
Yeah.
So then this is where the ride is about to start, is that there's these little cars you get in that seat so many people, like 2 or 3 benches worth of people. And you sit down and they strap you in, right? And then it goes. Now, the ride is actually, it's quite a ride. But here's the thing is that it has this new, at least new to me, trackless technology, right? So all these rides I've ever ridden at theme parks are always either a boat, right? Like Pirates of the Caribbean, it's a boat. Or B, or Splash Mountain, it's a boat. Or B, it's a track, right? Like it's a small world as a boat also.
Sometimes. I mean, the only third one is the 4D of it's a room on a bunch of pneumatics that moves around with the screen.
Yeah. Haunted Mansion's a track, right? You sit on it. It's on rails. It goes tick, 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 and it just pulls you along. It doesn't drop you or anything.
Peter Pan is a track, and you're just in a thing that's moving around.
Right. You just sit in a thing, and it turns your seat around, and you look at stuff. And then when you're done looking at all the stuff they've made, you get off. And that's the ride. So here, this is a trackless technology. You're in a car, basically, and there is no track. There is no boat. There's no water. It's just the floor. If you look out, the floor is just flat. It's just a big flat floor. And this thing moves around the floor, right? It's driving all around. And you can see where it's going to go because you can see where the floor has been worn away. but it must be. I'm sure you can also look up how it works in some patent filings online. But it's like some combination of wheels, magnets, something under the floor, right, is controlling where it goes, how fast it goes, how it turns. But it doesn't just drive in a straight line. It's like it's going all over the place. It spins. It go, and all shit's happening all around you. People shooting at you, shit exploding, right? And then at the end, it stops in this spot, and you can very obviously see that something has clamped onto the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And then the whole floor drops with it, right? Because obviously it couldn't drop on its own.
Yeah.
And and it's like, okay. But that's the actual ride part. Everything else up into the prison is not the ride yet. And it was just, I was very impressed by that ride. Would ride again, but would not, not going to fly to the other side of the country just to ride it again.
I think the moment if I had been in your shoes, the moment the same door opened again, I would have been like,
the door opening was the most amazing part.
I just would have been like, wow.
In.
So whoever designed this put in that extra little bit of effort, and they got me, a very skeptical, cynical adult who knows a lot about amusement parks.
Right, because look, if you go in the right side door and the left door opens, then it's sort of obvious, like, oh,
it's a room that can shake. Great.
There's a room that has, and this ship is really just a doorway, like a Metroid doorway to the next room.
Yep.
But the fact that the same door opened made it like really feel like we went somewhere.
But the fact that the designer of this ride, someone somewhere in the product management through implementation chain, said the door has to open on the same side the people come in. Someone made that their mission.
It's like, and you're standing in a place where you can see the real sky of the Earth, even though you're on a set that looks like you're outside a rebel base. You go in a door, the door opens again, and you are inside a Star Destroyer hangar, when you cannot see the outside. Right?
See, this is why. On one hand, we could talk. I could talk forever about the problems I have with Disney as a company, with amusement park. There's a lot of things we could talk about, but then Disney is the only company on earth that seems capable of this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just that there's that extra level of polishing that goes on.
If only they could have applied that to that hotel they made for Star Wars.
I mean,
somehow they made that really janky, but yet they make this ride amazing.
I don't think it was janky. I just think the concept, it's like there's only so much you could do with it.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that concept, the problem with that hotel was it needed to be more LARPy and less nothing. Seems like there's a lot of nothing that happened.
It's like, if you think about it, even that ride with the amazing pre-ride, right? It's like, wasn't that long to ride, It's like, so you're having to keep that level of, power of magic up for days.
But that's the danger. If I've heard of Disney,
you can't do it. It only works. You can only do it because it's only that long.
Yep. It's the scalability of the automation coupled with the short time span.
If you had to keep that level up, you'd have to build like a whole Disneyland sized place.
Well, you know what it'd be like? It would be like running an amusement park that is only for a small number of people and costs like $1 million to go to. You're basically making Westworld at that point.
I mean, I think the way you could do it, you're right, small number of people.
Yep.
Right, would be, you would have to basically pretend for real, right, that you're on like a ship.
Yeah.
Right?
You'd have to run it the way a LARP would be run. I would hire professional LARPers to design the experience if I were somehow in charge of this.
Yeah, it would have to be like, you're actually on a Star Destroyer. You are working on it.
Yep.
Right? Or you're on a rebel ship.
Like if Darth Vader shows up and you give him
you
sass.
have a job on the ship. You actually have to do that job for a few days.
Yep.
Right?
But at that point, it is literally a LARP.
All the things: sleeping, eating,
yep,
report to duty, etc. It's like,
or it's at minimum, it's sleep no more, but it lasts for a week, and you're sleeping in the theater the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So in some news. This actually just broke this morning, and I was really busy at work, so I had one meeting before I was gonna.
This was coming for a while.
I didn't think it would happen. I if you had asked me to bet money, like in a horse track, on whether or not this action or an action like it would ever happen. It
depends on when you asked me, because if you asked me last month, I would say probably not. But if you asked me last week, I'd say, oh yeah, that's basically already been decided. It's gonna happen.
But suddenly, like, all my coworkers are freaking out. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh,
why are you freaking out?
They're like, the Apple Watch got banned, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's.
And then I realized it was this thing.
Freak out about though? Why you freak out about it?
Because it's capital markets. And don't. This impacts money, people. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so the story is, what's going on is that as of Christmas Day, I think December 24th at midnight is when this formally takes effect, best I can tell. No Apple Watches, the new one, the Ultra 2 or the 9, will be allowed to be imported into the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And this is due to a ruling by a body that many of you have probably never heard of, the ITC. This is the United States ITC. It stands for the International Trade Commission. I don't interact with this. Like, as much as I'm big in like money stuff in the world, the ITC like does not exist as far as I am concerned professionally. I worry about the SEC and like all these other organizations. But the ITC, I'm just going to read Wikipedia here, is an agency of the United States federal government that advises the legislative and executive branches on matters of trade. It is an independent, bipartisan entity, and its goal is basically to analyze things like tariffs, competitiveness, etc. And it has a small but apparently very powerful set of tools at its disposal to achieve its mission. And one of those tools appears to be to basically ban imports of products.
Yeah, I mean, if something violates U.S. law or there's some other reason, trademark violations, things like that, they'll tell the customs people, right? Don't import that. If you see that come in at the dock, send it back or don't let it, be unloaded. And U.S. Customs actually does a pretty decent, I'm sure the smuggling happens, but for the most part, it's like, it's not so easy to, if I just order a bunch of counterfeit shit and have it in a shipping container and it gets to port in Newark, New Jersey, it's probably going to stay there.
There's a pretty good chance instead of you showing up to collect your crate, you will show up to meet with a nice man who wants to ask you some questions.
That's right. It's,
So
what's all these things you have with Apple logos all over them?
That's a lot of Versace in that crate, buddy.
Yeah.
That's a gift for your grandma. That's what you put on the customs form.
Oh, what's in this shipping crate? Bags. Why do these bags have all these logos all over them? Do you work for this company? Who are you?
So what is this all about? Effectively, the blood oxygen monitoring feature of the watches. So there is a company. The company is, I keep forgetting the name of the company. I always have to look it up again. The company is called Massimo. They're an American company. They're a huge company. I didn't know really much about them. And they basically have a patent on the way to detect blood oxygen that is used by the Apple devices.
You basically, if people don't know, right, you shine a light through someone's finger. Of course, it only works great on people with light skin. It doesn't work as great on people who don't have light skin.
It can work, but it's more complicated, and it's not. Yeah, anyway.
So they shine a light through your skin, and if your blood is highly oxygenated, it's going to be a different color. Right?
Pulse oximetry is the technology.
Yes. And so based on the light that's transmitted through your body that comes out on the other side, or is reflected back into your watch, they can tell how much oxygen is in the blood based on, the spectrum of photons that come.
Now this data point is really important for a lot of reasons.
It's the kind of thing that that kind of invention, like if someone who figured that out, that's the kind of thing that deserves a patent legitimately. It's not like some software patent nonsense, right?
So what I wondered when this story was first slowly making through the rounds is because when this kind of thing happens over a patent, it's either a patent troll or a big company trying to basically use someone else's research for their own purposes. So in this case...
It's the other way around.
Yep. this company, like, their whole deal is pulse oximetry. Like, they are researching this stuff directly. They're like
unlike copyrights, patents expire after a reasonable amount of time.
Yep.
I'm surprised this one actually isn't expired yet because this technology has been around a while.
Well, I want to say, from what I read, there is a very specific way to make it work that is at issue here, not the general concept. But no, this company is not a brand new patent troll. This company was founded in 1989. It's been around a while. And it's huge. So Apple is fighting with this company, and they seem to be losing or have lost. And
I mean, Apple has to either A, buy this company.
Yep. Well, let's see. They're
buy a patent license from this company.
Now, it is amazing that Apple has not licensed this patent, which either implies that Apple
can afford it.
Yeah. So either, now again, this is pure speculation. We have no inside knowledge. I'm not a professional.
Sure the hit on the margins of Apple Watches will be less than the hit of not selling any Apple Watches at all.
So in my uneducated experience and opinion on this kind of thing, either someone at Apple made the decision that the cost to them of licensing it was higher than the cost of winning lawsuits about this, and decided to go the lawsuit route instead of the just pay them route, or they thought they could win in court about the patent itself. Like, those are, I mean, the third option is gross incompetence. So it's one of those three is what led to this moment. But this company only has like 2,000 employees. Their total revenue is $1.2 billion in 2022. So
the biggest company on earth still, maybe.
I don't know why it came to this. Like, this feels like Apple fucked up at some point, because if someone in Apple had to have told someone who has power, yeah, the ITC might actually ban imports of our fucking watch, maybe we should deal with this situation. So now either President Biden is going to veto it, which I doubt he's going to do, or Apple's in deep shit.
Well, I mean, Apple will just basically have to pay probably even more because now they're over a barrel.
Yep.
To license the patent and then start selling Apple Watches again. Or they can't suddenly manufacture Apple Watches that don't have this in it. That's right.
Yeah.
It would take I guess they could make it so that the next Apple Watch doesn't have it, or a special US model that doesn't have it.
Yeah, but that is even worse, because we had a global pandemic where one of the most important metrics a person could have if they have COVID is their current blood oxygen, because there is a line below which you need to go to the hospital and a line above which you are probably okay right now. So there's a lot of people who, for reasons over the last few years, would really like take advantage of a feature like this, and it could save lives. So there's a lot more going on here than just a patent fight.
You're buying your Apple advertising worked on you. Buy an Apple Watch or die.
Yep. There are other ways to track this, but a lot of people did buy Apple Watches.
You better buy an Apple Watch so you don't die.
So the nuts thing, a guy I know at work, actually, we were talking about this, and when he saw the news, so he told me he specifically bought an Apple Watch because his doctor said to, because the oxygen sensor is really good. And for his particular medical stuff, like having a record of your blood oxygen over time would be a really good idea. And the Apple Watch is the best way to do it. You should just buy one. And then this news dropped.
If you are in that area of financial well-being that you can afford to buy Apple Watches, but need to make money because, your job doesn't pay that much.
Yep.
Buy Apple Watches and resell them right now.
Right.
It's probably already too late, but if it's not too late, if you can find MSRP Apple Watches, take them.
Now, I would say, let's get into communist room side. I would say the U.S. federal government should buy out all these companies that make critical medical research technology and then release the patents to the public. But what do I know? I'm just a human.
Yeah. That's too...
Yeah, that would be the decent thing to do.
Yeah. All right.
So in some other actually pretty good news but bad news for individuals.
It's good and bad news, right?
Yep.
So there's a company called Figma. and they make a software that lets you basically prototype user interfaces. So designers usually use this.
Yep. And I've used a lot of those kinds of softwares over the years, and in my personal professional opinion as a UX designer, Figma's real good. Like, Figma's near the top of the heap.
As far as the design world goes, all the designers agree with you because that's what they use.
Yep.
Right?
That's what I use. That's what my UX designers use.
Right. It's like you want to draw a picture of a website, a picture of your new mobile app, a picture of your new desktop app, whatever.
Yep. Do you want to make a clickable prototype to do A/B testing?
Right. For the main menu of your new video game you're making, right? You want to make you're not making actual user interfaces. You're making designs of user interfaces that then programmers and other people could then go look at that and implement and turn that into reality.
Yeah, it does way more than what a tool like Balsamic does. Like, this is not just mock up a UI. This is way more than that.
Yeah, and it does way more than like what a lot of people used to do back in the day of just draw pictures in Photoshop of what your UI is going to look like.
Or I would write HTML that just had completely fake data behind it was the other way I used to do that.
Yeah. So it's also like collaborative. So like you can all you load it up and everyone can sort of work on shit together the way you work on a Google Docs.
It's pretty good. Like that part of it too. Like better than you think it's going to be. This is not an advertisement, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. So this is basically a super popular, necessary application for everyone in the user interface design world. And Adobe, which is basically the king of this sort of app, right? A creative productivity app to, they've already got a video, they already got audio, they already got images.
They even have print design and graphic design and layout, like InDesign. People forget about that one. And they already have a UX tool that's not good enough for anyone to use professionally called Experience
Adobe
Designer.
Has tried several times to make basically a Figma.
Right?
A thing.
And they have failed. Experience Designer, not good.
Yeah.
Not good in my professional, personal
XD
opinion.
Stuff is like their most recent attempt that I'm aware of, right? So Adobe has tried to make this kind of tool, and they have not won in the marketplace of competitive. They have not beaten out their competitors.
They have not beaten any competitor, I don't think.
No. Anytime they've tried to make one of these, they've always just not gotten any users. No one uses it, and that's it, right? Really, the history of Adobe is that they bought, right? They made the Photoshop,
Audition is actually an application called Cool Edit that they bought because they couldn't do audio on their own.
Exactly. They started with Photoshop, and then everything else other than Photoshop is basically they bought the most popular #1 app, right? They bought Cool Edit and made Audition. They bought Macromedia to get Flash and Dreamweaver. I guess Dreamweaver still exists, I guess, if you want to, right? Premiere, I'm pretty sure, was from another company.
I don't actually know on Premiere.
I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure it was. Regardless.
What about Adobe On Location? Anyway.
But basically, pretty much everything Adobe Acrobat, they might have made Acrobat, actually. I don't know. But most of their success is because they've bought the best, the industry-leading application for a category and added it to the Creative Cloud, right? But they've not been able to make a Figma beater. Not even close, not even getting off the ground good. So they're like, fuck it, we'll just buy Figma. That's what we do, right? We'll just buy Figma.
Fuck it, I think Adobe bought On Location. It was a program called Serious Magic DV Rack that I think they bought. Anyway.
Yeah. So they anyway, they were going to buy Figma for like $20 billion or something. Premiere began at SuperMech Technology as Real-Time, a QuickTime video editor or something. So
all right.
They bought Premiere also. Anyway, so they were going to buy Figma, which is how they do. And that would be really bad news for designers everywhere because they'd have to basically, you want Figma, you got to do Creative Cloud. And a lot of people only need Figma to do their job. And they don't want to get involved with Creative Cloud. They don't want to pay a subscription. They don't want to, right?
But at the same time, Figma also has a subscription already anyway. It's like, that's not a situation. You'll just buy it.
But the point
is
that, like,
in my experience, at least in my industry, every UX designer is forced to have Creative Cloud anyway for other things. So
sometime,
in my industry, the response to this was, oh, Figma's just going to become free for us because we all literally already have Adobe Creative Cloud.
Yes,
that's fantastic.
So people who already have Creative Cloud, this would have been great because you'd suddenly get it for free in Creative Cloud, and people who are paying for both can now just pay for only one. Even like, the non-free Figma, the cheapest one is $12 per person per month. So you save quite a bit, right? If they're not going to raise the price of Creative Cloud because Figma's now included, they're just going to keep their prices steady. Then this would just be good news for people who already are in the Adobe world, but bad news for everybody else, and also bad news for competition because that's going to be the end of it, right? If anyone had any dreams of beating Figma now, right? Well, if Adobe included it, your dream would really be over because it's like, I'm getting Figma for free in my Creative Cloud. Why would I pay for an alternative, right? It's like, I'm already getting Photoshop free in my Creative Cloud. If someone else tries to make a Photoshop competitor, why would I even try it? I already have Photo, right?
Right.
So, in a rare, antitrust move, the various governments of the world were like, we don't know about this. This seems monopoly-ish, you buying the Figma. We don't like that. And so, after some fighting back and forth, similar to the NVIDIA ARM fighting that happened, right? Similar to the Blizzard Activision fighting that happened, Adobe's just like, all right, fine, fuck it. We won't buy Figma, right? We're not going to buy it. Just leave it out there. And that's so good news for competition and antitrust.
Yep,
and Adobe not running the world, and it's
because I think Adobe's Creative Cloud suite is super good at what it is, but also no company should be too big and do too many things. Just full stop. Period. Anything that's too big or does too many things should be run by the government.
Yep. But bad news for Creative Cloud customers: you're not going to get Figma for free. You're going to have to keep paying for it separately.
I'll admit, I was personally very much looking forward to just having it free at home alongside everything else.
Yeah, and I guess good news for people who pay for Figma but not Creative Cloud, because you're going to keep paying your lower price.
Now, I'm curious if any of you use these. Like, I have not encountered people who use Figma but not Creative Cloud. Like, every UX professional
person whose professional job is to use Figma but not Creative Cloud, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but if any of you are out there, like, I'd like to know exactly what your job is, because every UX designer I know at least needs Photoshop and usually InDesign.
Yeah. Anyway, so that happened.
But anyway, things of the day. This is a 1-minute video that explains something that I never knew. Why do Americans pronounce it Z when most of the rest of the world say Z?
That's one of the things that I looked up on the internet and knew the answer to.
And then forgot. So now you can watch this video.
You have to look it up again and then forget again.
You can watch this video, you'll learn it, and in about a year you'll forget it. But
that's right.
Now I know, and it's kind of funny why it went that way. And because 100% of the people I work with are in Europe at work, I've actually caught myself saying Z instead of Z, like for real in my day-to-day life, because whenever I say Z, everyone laughs out loud, and it's a problem.
Listen, I'm not just saying this because, I'm from the United States and I say Z, right? But I'm going to personally, if they're both out there on even footing, and
I think Z is better and I could give very good reasons why.
I'm going to say Z is better because here's my one reason and only reason.
All right.
Alphabet song doesn't work with Z.
So there is a slightly different.
Z. It's like.
You should watch the video then, I think, because the alphabet song
Z rhymes with V, TUVWXYNZ. It rhymes with the V.
What would you say if I said that the fucking alphabet song is part of the reason why Z started to overtake Z in parts of the world? The same way that of all the versions of the Jingle Bells Batman Smells song, the one that Bart Simpson sang in that one episode of The Simpsons replaced all the regional variations over the course of a decade globally.
That's how it happens, yeah.
So what do you got? Because I don't know what you got. You didn't tell me.
So today I went to the, because I don't work on Monday like a good person, like a fortunate person.
God damn it.
I just said, it's raining. Nothing to, I don't want to do any outside things. Let's go to the Met because there's that Manet Degas exhibit I want to see that's gonna disappear like early January. So I had to go quickly, right? Otherwise I wouldn't have gone outside in the rain. And I'm like, it's a Monday and it's raining, but it's also tourist season. How bad's it going to be? So I went to see it. And what did I know about Manet and Degas? I knew that they were painters who are famous.
Yep.
That's about it. Right. So now what do I know? I know a lot, but all I'll say about them is they were a lot like they have a lot more in common with Rim and Scott than I had imagined.
All right. That's not what I expected, because not only would I, when I was younger, often confuse Manet and Monet.
They were like two French dudes in Paris at the same time of similar age. Like one of them was maybe a couple years older, hanging out at the salons.
And 1800s.
They grew up, late 1800s. They grew up, wealthy.
Well, we grew up late 1900s.
Yeah.
There you go.
But anyway, they're obviously not exactly the same, but they had, they were buddies to some extent, at times. Anyway, but I saw a painting there and I looked at the painting and then I read the description of the painting and I said, that's the most Rim painting I ever saw. It was on loan from Philadelphia, actually. So, if you don't see it in New York, you can see it in Philly. It's not one of the ones that came from France that you can see. Because that's the main reason I wanted to go, is there are a lot of paintings that were on loan from France that are rarely on loan anywhere. And so basically it's like my chance to see them without a French plane ticket. But this painting was from Philly. And what it was a painting of was, obviously something historical that I did not know about, right? So let's see, does Rim know about the Battle of Cherbourg?
Battle of Cherbourg. Okay, I have definitely heard the phrase, the Battle of Cherbourg. I do not know anything specific about it at all, but I've definitely heard it before.
The Battle of Cherbourg. So by the way, there's a Manet painting. He didn't actually see the battle because it was a naval battle. He didn't see the battle, but he read about it in the newspaper, and then he painted it, and the painting was awesome.
Oh, it's a Civil War battle.
There was a U.S. Civil War battle.
Late 1800s.
Where the Union ship, the USS Kearsarge, waited for the French to repair the CSS Alabama.
Yeah.
And when the CSS Alabama said, well, we're just sitting here, and the Union...
Oh, they sunk it again? They attacked the gas station?
It's like our only choices are to just stay in France or to go out and battle, right? We have no other option. So once their ship was fixed, they raised up their Confederate flag and they sailed out. Union hauled up the Union flag, and there was a French ironclad ship, but they were only there to make sure that they battled outside the French waters. As long as they battled far enough away from the harbor, that French ship wasn't going to get involved, right? And so in the English Channel, outside Cherbourg, far enough away from the harbor to not hurt any French people, the Union blew the shit out of the Confederate boat. And there was a painting of it.
I was unaware of this specific battle. This is very up my alley. This is Rim's got a battleship just sitting outside of Scott's port waiting. Just by itself.
And so there's an extremely Rim painting that was in the museum. So the painting is the thing of the day. The name of the painting is just the Battle of the Kearsarge and the Alabama.
That's fantastic.
1864.
Honestly, the only Civil War naval battle I know about is the Merrimack and the Monitor.
Same.
Yeah, same kind of thing.
Yeah. But that it happened in France.
Yeah, this is
close to France.
I have this vision of French officers just laughing hysterically the entire time at how ridiculous this is. Just like, all right, your ship's fixed. Godspeed.
They were fixing the ship for them.
Well, they were, but they were being paid for it, and also
sure.
France did not actually want the Confederacy to win. It was just a complicated diplomatic situation for a lot of reasons. But I cannot imagine any officer in the French Navy in the year 1864 gave one fuck about what happened to some random Confederate who had a ship.
I'm just saying. That's,
In the meta moment, we forgot because we were really I was hungry and we stopped the show to announce the next book club book, but we did the Murderbot Diaries. We did the episode. You could read the Murderbot Diaries, and then you can listen to us talk about the Murderbot Diaries for over an hour. And I thought of something I should have said during the show that I didn't think to say. The whole overall plot seems to be about how, in the Murderbot Diaries, if you remove the governors, by and large, the average thing you remove a governor from, if it's sentient, ends up trying to do the right thing or at least be left alone. When the humans get their governors removed, when anyone gets their governor removed, they tend to just kind of want to not do whatever they were being forced to do. I mean, if the governors that were keeping me and Scott down were removed, we'd be out biking right now. We'd be on a bike tour somewhere.
It's a little cold. I'd have to be somewhere.
No, we'd be somewhere else in the world, somewhere warm,
about
biking.
half of the world right now.
Yeah, biking across Chile or something.
Ooh,
yeah,
mountainous, but
I could deal with that. A little e-bike boost. Yeah. Anyway,
maybe.
So, as is tradition, Scott now has to present two options, and then I have to decide which of the two options will be the next book club book.
Well, I was thinking lately, I went to my wish list of books, right? And I looked and I said, well, are there two books in my list of books here that I can make a theme, that I want to read and have some sort of thing in common, right?
Just like I did with my selections.
And we'll present a difficult and entertaining choice for Rim, and I don't care what the answer is. And I was like, I forgot to pick books. I didn't realize, oh wait, I didn't pick Murderbot. So or I did, but I wasn't the cutter.
It's so sad that you put the effort in to have it ready during the show, and then we just both forgot to even
literally 10 minutes before the show, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't cut for Rim to choose. And I open up the book list and I said, oh, I see the perfect one. It took me 2 seconds to find it. And then we didn't do it. So now, anyway, I have it prepared regardless, right? So what do they have in common? Real easy. There's books that have been turned into anime movies that we saw and discussed, and we never read the fucking books.
Ooh.
And the books came out in English.
Is one of them Slayer's book?
No.
Okay.
Why would it be Slayer's book?
Anime movie came out in English.
Right. So here's two books.
All right.
That were turned into anime movies. We saw the movies. We talked about the movies. The books are in English. We can just get them. And we never read the books. At least as far as I know, we never read the books, right? So obviously, The Boy and the Heron was based on the book How Do You Live by Genzaburo Yoshino.
Yeah.
You can get it on Kindle for $8, maybe free at the library. Only $9 paperback. So, there's that one. And the other book, right? Night is Short, Walk On Girl by Tomihiko Morimi. That's a book you can get in English also.
Oh, that's a real hard choice. Because on one hand, we just watched The Boy and the Heron, and it's stuck in my craw, and I keep thinking of lit crit things to say about it. But on the other hand, Walk On Girl, The Night Is Young, is that is one of my, that movie spoke to me deeply, and I really enjoy it. God, I should pick quickly, because if you put in a quick effort, I'm going to make a decision.
They're both about, I don't think either one will be long, because it says they're both about how many pages?
Let's go with The Night Is Short.
300 pages.
Let's go with The Night Is Short, Walk On Girl, because I want more distance from the Boy and Heron movie before I read the book and have thoughts about it.
The book for Night Is Short, Walk On Girl, I think is very close to the movie from what I know, whereas the How Do You Live, I'm pretty sure is very far away from the movie.
I get that impression too. If literal Italian fascist parakeets show up in that book, I would be shocked.
Right. So, Night Is Short, Walk On Girl by Tomihiko Morimi. A college student spends an evening out, unwittingly attracting the attention of various men. In particular, an upperclassman has been nursing a crush on her for some time, has chosen this night to make his feelings known.
272 pages. It's a quick read.
This says 203 pages.
Oh.
I guess that's the Kindle edition, the hardcover.
What am I looking at? I am looking at the hardcover edition.
72 pages.
Okay.
So I guess if you read it an ebook, you'll get more words per page. By default. Unless you change your font size, then you can get more words per page. It's up to fewer words per page. Your choice.
Partial word, 0.7 words per page. Let's go.
We're gonna read the English translation.
Yes.
By Yen On. We're not fluent in Japanese, so that's how it's gonna be.
I think we both know a smattering of nouns from anime.
Right, but I wouldn't be able to read even the ones that I know if they're in the moon language. So,
yep. All right. So, other meta moment, stuff's going. Our latest panel is up on YouTube. You can go watch it. It was a pretty good panel. We are scheduled to do at least 2 panels at MagFest, maybe more. We will very, very likely be at PAX East doing panels, probably also in Forsen and all the other fun stuff we like to do. And I don't think I can project any other strong Geek Nights plans out into the future except the usual at this time. So let's get right into it. The phone upgrade cycle. I was thinking about this episode specifically because we were chatting with some friends around a poll that basically said most people don't actually want to buy a new iPhone every year. But yet Apple releases a new iPhone every year, and a huge, huge number of people, and in fact, it appears, based on some further research I did, a high percentage of iPhone users do in fact buy a new phone every year, and there's a disconnect there, and that is at an intersection of non-Apple phones, and also an intersection of people die to make the components that make phones, and the waste from phones is killing the planet. So there's a lot to talk about there.
I did read a thing similar recently, talking about, how the network effects of, social networks and whatnot, and that a lot of people only use social networks, Instagrams, Facebooks, right? Not because they enjoy it, not because they want to, right? But because it exists and because so many people are there that
FOMO.
if they're not on it, then they have this FOMO, like I'm missing out, right? And for example, I know for a fact, right? I am missing, right? It's like, I know that
I'm missing like Neo in the Matrix, though. They're missing me. Those ads and those bullets and those social trends, I am dodging them.
Like, I know that people in my family are, and friends of mine are on Instagram, posting, right? And that's the only way that they're really communicating about what's going on in their lives. And they're people I know and care about. And I don't know what those things are happening in their life, right? And because I'm not on there, right? I'm not looking at their Instagram stories every day.
Yep.
And so
I got family use Facebook, and while it's not, I'm avoiding them. I am unwilling to use Facebook. Full stop.
No, right. But if I used it, I would, I would be closer to them. I would know more about what's going on with them. I would communicate with them more, right? And by not using it, I'm not, right? So there is something that happens there, right? And it's so here, it's like when iPhones come out, right? It's like people don't want them to come out, right? It's like, oh, you updated the phone again, and now they feel like they're missing out. All right, this is at least how I see it. Right? They're missing the new feature. I don't have the new feature. I can't do the new thing. I don't have, right? And so
regardless if they
never came out, if it didn't come out, they wouldn't have those feelings, and then they wouldn't feel the need to upgrade their phone if there's not, at least, especially if you can't upgrade.
Because there's a small percentage of people who are sitting there thinking, man, my iPhone is great, but I wish it could do X. And then the next iPhone is specifically does X. Right. That is very rare, I think.
Right. Then there's really shallow people who are just keeping up with the Joneses, right? It's like neighbor got a new car, I gotta have a cooler car than neighbor.
And as stupid as that sounds, so an unrelated FARC thread from a few weeks ago, there's a lot of evidence that a lot of people make life decisions based almost solely on what they see the neighbors that they are afraid of feeling lesser than are doing. That's a thing.
Yep. It's a huge thing.
And if you
probably explains a lot of the history of people.
Yep. In fact, zoom out a little bit in America too. People say they don't like these giant cars, yet people only buy giant cars. So there's definitely
people like the giant cars.
Some people do.
Only the good people say they don't like them. Most people actually say they like them. They're like, check out my awesome giant truck.
But they only started to say they liked them when there was a certain media machine advertising the value of owning one to them.
It made them like them.
Yep.
They didn't like them independently. They were made and convinced to like them, but now they do.
But then they'll be in the situation of not liking all the specific details, like it cost me $400 to fill my tank and I can't parallel park, and someone keyed it because, but they're mad about all those things, but still say they like the thing.
So the phone upgrade situation, right? So back in the day when it was flip phones and all the phones could do really was make phone calls, right? It's like, why would you, like, there wasn't really a reason to upgrade phones.
Nope.
It's like, as long as the phone worked, it's like, there were people buying like new flip phones pretty regularly, right? But it's like, it wasn't really like a big reason to do so other than like, change the style of the phone. And like once you got to the Motorola Razr, right? It's like that thing was basically so elite as far as flip phones go. There was no, like, what are you going to upgrade to? It's like,
right.
There wasn't much more they could do.
Like if you went from a middle of the road phone back then to the best phone money can buy, it's slightly smaller. The battery lasts an extra hour and it has a smaller antenna. Like, great.
Yeah.
Maybe the screen is slightly bigger.
The earliest smartphones, like the Palm Trios and the Blackberries, they were way expensive. They actually were, if you look back at them now, they seem so limited. And they, at the time, they actually were kind of limited, right? The first job, I had a Blackberry, right?
Yep.
And it's like,
I mean, I remember the moment
you could play Brick Breaker on it.
Like the moment I had a job, and they said, "Oh, you have to get a Blackberry," and I got excited because that was my first smartphone, like my equivalent of a smartphone. But the fact that it had a map in it and GPS was insane to me at that time.
Yep. I didn't have one that good.
Yeah. Well, I worked for a fancy company.
Yeah. Regardless, it's like people didn't really have those. They weren't upgrading them if they didn't have them to begin with. Right?
Yep.
People had flip phones. It wasn't. Then the iPhone hits, right? So iPhone's so expensive, it didn't even have apps yet. Only some people bought it, but they stuck with it. I got the iPhone 3G the day it came out. That was it. And the reason I bought it was not because I was trying to upgrade my flip phone, but because I was carrying a flip phone and an iPod everywhere I went. And I said, now I can carry one thing instead of two things. That was why I bought the iPhone 3G the day it came out, just for that. I didn't care about anything else it did. I said, I can carry one thing instead of two things with me everywhere I go. That's incredible. That's the best. I'll pay you money for that.
And that's kind of how you and I have always operated. Like when it comes to technology, it's not what could I buy and then get something. It's always what problem do I want to solve? And then is there a piece of technology that will contribute to a solution to that problem?
Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is, I got that iPhone 3G, and really, it's like I tried to, like, my memory of the iPhone 3G, I wish I didn't get, it's like at the time I got rid of all those phones for good reason, and it's only now that I wish I didn't. It's like fundamentally it did everything I needed it to do, but it's like if you look at the features that were actually added since then, it's like, wow, it was really missing a lot of features. 3G, right? Not just the fact that it was only 3G, but like,
well, it was a long time before smartphones transitioned into being just tiny computers.
And so what ended up happening was because, the way phone contracts work back in those days is they were 2 years long and you were subsidizing the phone in your phone bill, right? You weren't paying that much for the phone itself up front. It was the wrong way, but that's the way it was. And so it actually made a lot of sense for me to every 2 years, they would go iPhone, they were like 3G, 3GS, iPhone 4, 4S, iPhone 5, 5S, iPhone 6, right? So I bought the iPhone 3G, the iPhone 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? All of those on the day they came out or close to it. I upgraded the phone every 2 years when I had to renew the phone contract. It made economic sense, and the phones were upgraded so much, right? Those S phones were only upgraded a little bit from the previous model, whereas the big numbered upgrades were like a big upgrade from 2 years ago with completely new features, right? I forget which one like added 5G or 4G, right? It's like, huge upgrades that made it real difference. But actually, the iPhone 7 versus the 6, it was not really as significant as like the 3 to the 4 or the 4 to the 5. The 4 to the 5, I think, I remember it being really big, though I have to look up exactly what the features were. The form factor of the 5 is still the best, right? That's basically what the iPhone mini is now.
Well,
it's
was.
the
Rest in
same as
peace,
iPhone 5.
13 mini.
Yeah.
Last good
Yep.
phone.
I like 5, and the mini ones were the best. Anyway, so once I got to iPhone 7, right? That's when I stopped because 8, 9, 10, like those were not. The 7 was still working great. It was nothing those new ones did better. They were just bigger.
Yep.
I mean, they had some features, but they weren't the groundbreaking features, right?
Well, plus
I mean,
sometimes features that appear on a new iPhone are a software update more so than like.
But the iPhone 7 kept getting software updates.
Yep.
They kept supporting. Now, obviously, just because you get the software update doesn't mean that every feature will work, right? Like we all have the same version of iOS, but someone who has a brand new iPhone can do like, fancy camera shit, right?
Yep.
Whereas even though I have the same camera app, I don't have the hardware to support the fancy shit. So I can't do the LiDARs and all those.
But now we're at a point with phones, a lot like we got with gaming consoles and even like desktop computers, where there was a period where like the physical hardware capabilities would radically advance year over year. Like you buy a computer in 1994, a computer in 1995 is so much faster than it that like it's ludicrous. Just throw the old one away. Like it is like, I think there was a point when every computer I bought had a clock speed on its CPU of 4 times the previous one. And I kept that going through 4 desktop computers. But now, like, an iPhone 15 is not materially more powerful than an iPhone 13 in most of the ways that matter.
Yep, unless you're doing some high performance thing on your phone for some reason.
Yep, rendering GeekNights videos on the phone. Let's go.
You could.
Could.
It's like, yeah, it just, for the most people, it doesn't matter at all, right? So it's like, now, once I got to the iPhone 7, I was like, there's no reason to upgrade this. It's just going to cost me money. I'd have to pay a whole new phone for a ton of money. I'll just keep this iPhone 7. I'll keep my phone plan, right? Just because I can, and I'll just keep going. There's no contract shit anymore. And I kept using the iPhone 7 until they said, here's the tiny one. I would have kept it for one more year because I said, well, I could just keep it until they stop supporting it with, iOS updates. That's really what you should do, right? Is wait until you can't, as soon as you can't get software updates, you sort of have to upgrade the phone. And I think this is actually a bad thing.
Oh, I think, I'll go further. I think for mass market stuff like phones, because of the way the world is, there should be regulations and laws requiring software support for not just an arbitrary period, but a long period. Like I would say at least 10 years.
I think that they should be forced to count how many people are still using that device. And as long as the number is significant enough. It's like, too bad you have to do security patches.
Yep. Or you have to buy them all back.
I could do that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, regardless, it's like Apple does give updates for quite a long time, right? Compared to Android. Android has improved, actually. At least Google has with the Pixels, right? They've improved it recently.
Oh, they have to a big degree.
Yeah, but only very recently. Like, if you bought a Google phone a few generations ago, you're only going to get updates for like maybe 3 years. Now it's 5 or 7 years, right? Which is pretty close to what Apple, I think, has been doing.
Well, especially considering phone batteries start to peter out after 2 to 4 years.
You can always replace the battery, even though it's not easy to do.
It's gonna get easy because there's other EU stuff happening that's gonna force this on everybody. Anyway.
Yeah, good. But yeah, so it's like, well, now I could just get a phone and keep that phone until it no longer gets updates to its software, right? And thus, when that happens, it's like you kind of have to replace the phone because if your phone is the key to your life, basically, and if there's a security flaw in it that is not patched, that's like keeping your whole life in an unsecured box. No, can't do that, right?
It's the most important thing is the security updates. That's my philosophy is the same. I will use a smartphone until it physically doesn't work anymore or it is no longer secure.
I'm even paying, I probably shouldn't, right? Like a few dollars, like single digit dollars a month, so that the Apple Care for my phone keeps going. So
Yeah, which
hopefully I'm
also,
hoping to
I
pay-
also,
Yeah. So first of all, because they stopped making the mini phone, all right, and I like the small phone, I want to do anything I can to keep this phone going as long as possible.
I mean, remember when the Xperia line got discontinued, like the super small Sony phones that are like shockingly small compared to even an iPhone mini? I bought 2 of the same phone when it came out, and I kept one just sealed. And then when the first one started dying because the battery was fucked after 2.5 years, or 3.5 years, I cracked open the other one and migrated to it, and then I kept the first one as a backup. That's how committed I am to longevity small phone.
But I mean, but you have the iPhone 13, man.
Now I
right?
do.
The 12. So so for some reason they stop supporting the 12 but still support the 13, I might try to find like a 13 somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's one out there somewhere that's like in box, no one's ever used it.
Yeah. I mean,
but-
mine, for all the abuse it suffered, is in shockingly good condition, and the battery actually
no,
still
mine's
works
just
pretty
fine.
well.
It might need a battery at some point, but I'm hoping that I'll make my money back on the Apple Care by getting a free battery
Yep.
of some kind at some through that.
But I guess
regardless, it's like
I would.
going.
It sucks because society, capitalism, advertise, like there's a lot of factors that drive people to like literally get a new phone every year, and the cost to them is not that much if iPhones are a relatively cheap part of their life. Like if you have money, just getting a new iPhone every year and trading in the old one, like we were talking about before the show, that cost rounds down to 0 for a surprising number of people, and they just always have a great phone, like in the old days when someone would just lease cars and every 2 years, brand new car, and they just have a car payment for the rest of their lives. They don't even think about it. But that's really bad for society and bad for the planet. So if I were you, I would say the ethically better thing to do is to buy a phone and honestly treat it the way we treat it. Try to use phones as long as possible and only upgrade if your phone breaks and the economics, like obviously if your phone's broken, you're probably better off buying the newest one you can afford because that'll give it the most longevity. And otherwise, only upgrade if you're forced to, or there's a specific feature you needed before the phone came out and knew you needed and wanted that did not exist.
Yep. Now, if you're low on funds, right? It's very economically and environmentally sensible to go and pick up an older phone.
Yep.
That's someone who just someone else is out there buying new phones. You can buy their year-old phone.
Yeah, buy a refurbished iPhone 13 today. That'll last a while still. It'll be way cheaper than a brand new iPhone.
Right. The thing is that if you buy old phones, the number of years that you get out of them is going to be less than 7 years.
Yep.
Right? Maybe
Unless we pass a law
one-year-old
requiring
phone.
Apple to support them longer.
Right. If you get a 1-year-old phone, hopefully it'll last 6 years. But if you buy a 4-year-old phone, it's gonna last like 3 years.
I feel like
you'd be buying cheaper phones, but it's like okay, but it's like every 3 or 4 years you buy a phone that's 3 or 4 years old, or every
then you fall
years,
into that Pratchett.
0 years
You
old,
fall into that
right?
Pratchett paradox of cheap boots are more expensive than expensive boots.
Exactly. Costs more to be poor. Right?
So I think there is a pretty clear line of advice though. Right now, 2 generations back is the line. Buying phones that are more than 2 years old is probably more likely to be a bad idea long term. But 2 years is like, that's the line I would pick if I were in that position myself.
Yep. I think the other thing is, people, I guess, are clumsy or whatever, but it's like,
I don't understand how, like, every person I know has, like, this absolutely fucking shattered smartphone. Like, what the fuck do you do to your phones? I don't even use a case. The people I know have shattered phones have them, like, in a case, shattered.
When I first got iPhone 3G and 4, I was, like, getting a case and putting a screen protector because it just, like, they were there, and it felt like that was the thing to do. And then iPhone 5, I didn't, but the iPhone 5 is actually one that I broke and had to get repaired. Why? Because it was in my bag and I was on my bicycle and I fell over.
My current iPhone, I went over my handlebars at speed. The phone popped out of my jersey, fell in front of me, and I landed on it, and it was fine.
Yeah. That was much newer than an iPhone 5, right?
Yeah.
But I got the screen on it repaired, and I used it for, until the iPhone 6 came out.
Yep.
But it's like, that was the only time. I haven't used it. I still, you think, oh, after that, Scott would put a case on his phone. No, I haven't put a case on my phone. 6, 7, 12.
I've
right?
never put a case on my phone at any point. I hate phone cases.
I think only the 3G is the one I had a case for, and I don't think I used it. I got it when it was new, and then I stopped using it. But basically, it's like it's like your phone is worth a lot of money. Take care of it. Don't be clumsy.
I do not understand how people
that has keys in it. Don't put it in a bag where there are things that'll bop into it. Put it in a cushion.
Oh my god! You just triggered a core memory. I was on a work flight before COVID, and I watched a guy get into first class, like he was walking toward first class, and he had a giant
guy he can afford it.
Yeah, he has a giant smartphone sticking out of his back pocket, and then he just sits down in his seat, and I hear a very distinct and loud crunch.
Yep.
How are people like that? I mean, if you're that rich, I feel like your default like that, and the longer your family's been rich, the more likely you are to be like that. But smartphone is probably the most important thing you've ever bought.
Yeah, it's like hold it carefully, right? If you can't hold it securely, don't hold it. It's like you see people on the subway holding it with 2 fingers.
I mean, I do that, but I don't drop it.
Right. Well, I hold on. If my phone, it's like whenever my phone is, I'm holding it. It's like I'm holding it. You know
what's funny? I don't. I'm holding up for the camera. This is exactly how I hold my phone all the time. It is balanced on my pinky, and only my index finger is touching it. I'm barely touching it. It's just floating there. But you know what I've never done?
That's fine if I'm just sitting there. Right?
Yeah, or if I'm on the subway, unless it's a line I know is
I don't hold my phone and 10 other things at once, right? It's if I have to suddenly hold a bunch of things, I put the phone away.
Late for class, your phone's in your mouth like it's toast. You're running down the street.
Right. It's if I'm holding my phone, I'm holding the phone, and if I got to do something else, phone goes away, so nothing happens to it, right?
Yep.
And my uncased phone is basically it's an iPhone 12, so what's it, 3-4 years old already? You couldn't tell it wasn't mint condition really. Cases are not necessary to make the phone last a long time. I bet you people with cases are probably replacing your phone more than I am.
I would bet so too, especially considering a lot of the people I know who use phone cases also have cracks in their screens somehow, despite being in the case.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a whole other problem with humans that we could talk about.
I don't know the causes of that, but I just know it's a thing. It's a thing.
Yep. But the bet is make a rule that technology like phones has to be supported for a very long minimum amount of time for security updates, and hold companies liable and require buybacks and treat the old phones like toxic waste.
Yep. And since, we talked about use all the same, we did at least 1 or 2 episodes on upgrading. You got to use all that same logic nowadays. It's no longer the days where phones are significantly changing. You got to use the same logic. If a new phone comes out and you want it, can you say specifically, this is the new feature on that phone and I need it to actually do a thing, right? And that's why it's worth it for me to buy that new phone instead of the phone I have. My life will actually be different with that phone than with this one, etc.
Like a blood oxygen sensor.
Yeah, something like that. Or, when they added GPS to the phones, it's well, I guess right, that's a significant difference.
That was that remains honestly the primary thing I want a smartphone for is maps and GPS more than anything else.
Yeah. Or I guess, starting with some of the recent iPhones, the Plus phones, the big feature they've added is you can really, really film high quality shit with them. So it's if you're someone who doesn't have a separate camera at all, then it's that is your camera. And if you're doing video or photo work with it, for reals-ish, then upgrading it becomes, much more important.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you, I just have cameras, so I really just don't give a shit about the photo camera upgrades in the phone.
Until, I'm going to replace sometime my old GX1 because that thing's got like little dinosaur bones inside of it at this point.
If Fuji makes a new camera this year, as rumored, you can buy this X100F from me.
I am not opposed.
It's my most used camera. Of all the cameras I have, I use this one the most.
I mean, I still hella use my GX1. I love that thing. It's just ancient and the quality is not there in the year 2023.
And the thing is, the problem is this camera, despite being pretty old and still has micro USB and whatnot, is really, it's like there's even, it's two versions old of this one, right? Is still selling for very high amounts of money compared to what I paid for it because of the popularity. So I can't just give it to you.
Oh yeah, this would be a transaction. I did a little bit of quick Googling on what they're going for out there.
Because I use this camera like way more than any other camera I own, I will, if they come out with a new one of it, right, which would be a 2-version upgrade, I would
Of course, if the advice line I gave for phones was 2 years, 2 generations, I should buy the same new one you buy.
Yeah, you could. It might be hard to get though because the demand was going to be insane if they announced
Yep,
it.
that's a separate problem. All right, we've gone on way long and I'm hungry. This is what happens when we skip Geek Nights. So I think we should wrap up. I did not. I'm about to pass out. I got to eat some food. I smell cooking in the other room.
Ooh.